journey to face and embrace, I believe, started many years ago. And recently it has really come into the heightened part of my life because it is fibromyalgia and it affects so much of my life. And if you don't have it, I'm not sure you could understand it. Like most things in life, I've never had cancer, so I don't think I can really understand what it's like to face that word alone. Not just the treatments and the doctors and everything, the pain and the sickness that's involved in the fear of cancer. So I really can't understand it, but I can understand fibromyalgia. I got it. I've had it for, I think I probably had it since I was in my mid-20s. And at that point, it was just diagnosed as low vitamin D, low B12. Try to take my glasses off. I don't know if I'll be able to leave them off. I'm a little squinty without them, but I'm going to try. With my fibromyalgia, when I was 30 plus years ago, when I would be diagnosed with things, I thought that fibro was something that was in your head. I thought it was a mental thing, and so I kind of refused the diagnosis a few times by doctors, and it would come and go. So I would have maybe a week up to a month at a time, and I would have extreme fatigue, and I would sleep a lot, and then I would have really bad brain fog and like mental dementia type brain fog, and then my body hurt, and my body would hurt in the joints and in the muscles. I just hurt all over. And of course, I did have all the pressure points, and they were very, very sensitive. My whole body was sensitive. Somebody would lightly punch me, and it would hurt really bad. So that was my beginning with my fibro. In January of 2020, the year of COVID-19, I got sick with bronchitis and a cold. However, for 9 months I was sick, and all of my symptoms of the extreme fatigue, the body aches, and the brain fog were so prevalent that I could not drive. So my husband became the primary driver, which is so unusual because I love to drive, and so that became very hard. But I also was a little scary at times, he said, because we would be in a grocery store and I would be like, why are we here in this grocery store? So because this had really hit my chest, this cold and this bronchitis, that part was very, very painful. And the COVID-19 was going on, and of course that was one of the symptoms. And I was tested probably 4 times for COVID-19 over those 9 months and nothing. But my primary care doctor, because I was so sick, decided to send me to a cardiologist, a pulmonologist, an allergist, an immunologist, and an ENT. And from those doctors, I ended up with 2 things. One, the allergist told me that he really did believe it was all in my head. So that was not good. And the immunologist found a very slight elevated ANA, which just kind of puts me borderline into the immunology issues. So my immunologist and my primary care physician, after going to all these doctors, they both just suggested that if I wanted to, they would try to get me in at Mayo with an immunologist there. So we drove down to Jacksonville, Florida, my husband and I, and went to see this immunologist. And I walked into his office, and he had looked at my chart, and he looked up at me, asked me maybe 3 or 4 questions, and he said, I'm sorry that nobody's told you this, but you have fibromyalgia. And I started crying. I did not want that diagnosis. Of course, I didn't want something that was going to kill me, but I did not want something that was chronic, that I couldn't do anything about. I really believed I had no control over my fibro, that it controlled me. This doctor, however, recommended that some people go to the Pain Rehab Center at Mayo down in Jacksonville for 3 weeks, and they learn how to manage fibromyalgia. So I told him I would think about it, came home, thought about it, checked into the insurance, and decided to go. So I couldn't get in. This was in December when I saw this doctor at Jacksonville, and I got in July. So PRC, Pain Rehab Center at Mayo. Spent 3 weeks there in July, and learned how to manage my fibromyalgia. At Mayo, I learned the tools to help battle, to help embrace, to actually control the fibromyalgia better than it controlling me. And so when I think of the words face and embrace, I think that's where this is coming from, is I could have decided to just allow the fibromyalgia to rule my life. And do I enjoy the things that I learned at Mayo, all the little scheduling, for lack of better words, because that is what it is, that I have to do during a day, that I have to fit in my sleep at a certain time and certain hours, and I have to fit in my strength training so many days a week and cardio so many days a week, and every morning go through a stretching routine every single morning. And then my food, of course, and my thinking, because I have to do some cognitive behavior therapy and some mind over body. Tons of distraction techniques that they taught me. And is this what I want to do with my life? Do I want this to affect those around me when we're going somewhere and my brain fog decides to kick it up a notch and I can't think clearly? And I don't even have the energy, the fatigue is there, and I don't even have the energy to carry on a conversation. Do I want that for myself? And definitely not for other people. I feel bad for other people when they're with me and my fibro kicks up. However, I've learned that number one, breathing. Deep belly breathing is something I don't do very often, but it can turn my fibro symptoms around so I can face them and embrace them. And I don't like the word fight, but I can counter the effects that the fibro is having in my body by doing some of the tools and the things that they taught me at Mayo during the 3-week pain rehab clinic that I was at. One of the key elements that Mayo taught at the Pain Rehab Center was CSS. They put fibromyalgia in a syndrome called CSS, Central Sensitization Syndrome. If you've watched any of my other videos, you've seen a little bit of me talking about that. You've seen some about the vagus nerve and the breathing and how that helps. But with CSS, it is a neurological dysfunction, a neurological malfunction that is happening in my body. And I think of it like this. My body has chosen to be in a fight or flight mode, and sometimes you can pinpoint why it is that way and sometimes you can't. For some people it is because they've had a trauma, for some people it's an extreme illness, for others it's just how stress affects your body. So CSS is when your neurological system is totally sensitive. So my body is overly sensitive to the stimulus around me, and it doesn't take a lot for my body to have too much stimulus, and then it starts acting up. Yeah. In a way, I'm kind of like a baby. You know how if you take a baby into a loud environment and a lot of people are holding them, some babies, when you then take them home, they can't calm down because they have been overstimulated. Well, that's how my body is, except my overstimulation isn't crying on the outside, it's probably crying on the inside because the brain fog, the fatigue, and the body pain can be pretty unbearable sometimes. I decided to do this video about my fibro and my story because I watched quite a few on YouTube of other people who have fibromyalgia and chronic pain and chronic fatigue. And I hope that something that you have heard from me might help you control your chronic pain versus it controlling you. It is a great big world out there, and it is so hard to have a perception all the time that is healthy. I am so thankful and so blessed to be retired and to have the means to travel and to see things and enjoy things. For those 9 months when I was sick, I thought it was over. I thought that my life was now on that couch, laying in that bed, going to see doctors, taking drugs. And I don't know where I will be in 2 years or 5 years, but I know that what I learned at the Pain Rehab Center at Mayo in Jacksonville has set me on a path of, right now, I am able to control my fibromyalgia. Is it still present? Yes. Is it still a bother? Absolutely. Does it still hurt? Absolutely. However, it's not who I am, and I don't want it to be. I don't want it to define me. And I'm just so thankful that the things that I've learned are working, and I hope to continue them. So I went to Mayo. It will be a year ago in July. This coming July, it will be 1 year. And I just hope to keep processing forward. So those of you who have chronic illness, chronic pain, I would so recommend learning the tools that Mayo's taught me, going to the Pain Rehab Center yourself if you have the insurance that'll help pay for it. So I think of all of you out there many times a day as I'm dealing with my own fibro and my own issues and just with life in general. And I would love to pray for any of you. So if anybody has something that they need a specific prayer for, please write that down below and I will add that to my prayer list. And I think that's it for this vlog. I'm going to make this one pretty raw, so it's just going to come out pretty much like it is. A lot of my videos I have fun with, but this one, I think I'm just going to let her go. So always end with happy trails, y'all.